College life is all about the experiences you have with the people around you, but what happens when one falls victim to the heinous crimes of a twisted man? This is the story of the University of Idaho killings, when 4 innocent students were fatally stabbed in their off-campus residence. Despite authorities having a clear timeline of the events that unfolded in the early hours of November 13th, nobody knows why these students were targeted. The culprit emerged as Brian Christopher Kohberger. But why did he do it? Welcome back to True Crime Investigation. Before we dive into the case, we would like to offer our deepest condolences to the friends and family of the victims who are still mourning their losses to this day. In the college town of Moscow, Idaho, several University of Idaho students turned a rented 3-story place into their home. It had 6 bedrooms, but it soon became the backdrop for a tragic event in the early morning hours of November 13, 2022. Moscow had been homicide-free since 2015, but that changed one November night when 4 University of Idaho students, Madison Mogen, Zana Kernodle, Kaylee Goncalves, and Ethan Chapin, became victims of a disturbing stabbing spree in their shared home. While Mogen and Kernodle lived there, Goncalves had recently moved out but returned for a gathering, and Chapin, Kernodle's boyfriend, decided to crash for the night. Recapping the previous night, Chapin and Kernodle hit an on-campus party at the Sigma Chi fraternity, getting back home at 1:45 a.m. Simultaneously, best friends Mogen and Goncalves hung out at the Corner Club, a downtown sports bar, leaving at 1:30 a.m. A Twitch livestream by the Grub Truck captured their carefree moments at 1:41 a.m., grabbing food and supposedly taking an Uber home, finally reaching at 1:56 a.m. By 2 a.m., all 4 students were safely inside. However, the sequence of unanswered phone calls puzzled everyone. Goncalves made calls to her ex-boyfriend from 2:26 a.m., while Mogen called Goncalves' ex-boyfriend between 2:44 a.m. and 2:52 a.m. Despite these calls, investigations ruled out the call recipient's involvement. Around 4 a.m., Kernodle received a DoorDash order, adding another layer to the strange events of that night. At some point, a surviving roommate on the 2nd floor, Mortensen, was awakened by unsettling sounds, possibly from Goncalves and her dog. A mysterious utterance, someone alerting others to a presence, echoed through the darkened corridors. Whether it was Goncalves or Kernodle who spoke remained unclear. As Mortensen cautiously opened her door, cries from Kernodle's room and a male voice reassuring someone filled the air. Security cameras near the house captured the tragic audio. Whimpering, a thud, and a distressed dog barking from around 4:17 a.m. The survivor encountered a mysterious figure in black masked attire, silently passing by and using the sliding glass door for a hasty exit. The chilling episode ended with the survivor locking herself in her room, bewildered by the ordeal. Meanwhile, on the upper floors, the 4 victims met a harrowing fate, stabbed to death in their beds. Mogen and Goncalves were in Mogen's bedroom, while Kernodle and Chapin were found in Kernodle's room. The scene revealed blood-splattered walls portraying the inexplicable cruelty that unfolded in their shared home. The victims were ungagged and unrestrained, emphasizing the incomprehensible loss within their community. In the aftermath, a troubling delay in seeking help emerged. The call to 911 only came at 11:58 a.m., hours after the tragedy, seeking aid for an unconscious individual within the residence, using the surviving roommate's cell phone. As law enforcement arrived, an eerie calm surrounded the home, with no signs of forced entry or internal disturbance. Inside, the 2 surviving roommates and friends of the victims awaited the authorities. Their distress led them to summon friends, as one second-floor victim lay unresponsive. Though the identity of the 911 caller remained undisclosed, police clarified they weren't a suspect. The grim reality was sealed at noon when all 4 victims were officially declared deceased. Detectives piecing together the timeline guessed the merciless killings occurred between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. The night also bore witness to an unexpected survivor, Goncalves' dog, alive and unharmed. The students who were lost to this incident weren't just names, but bright minds with dreams that got cut short. Ethan Chapin, the freshman from Conway, Washington. Kaylee Goncalves, the local from Rathdrum, Idaho. Zana Kernodle, the junior with roots in Avondale, Arizona, who later called Post Falls, Idaho home. And Madison Mogen, the senior from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Each one had their journey halted too soon. Chapin had just started, Kernodle was in the thick of her studies, and Goncalves and Mogan were on the verge of graduating. But their futures were snuffed out by an inexplicable act of violence. After the heavy echoes of November 13th, the university gave everyone a break on November 14th. The planned candlelight vigil on November 16th got shuffled around and eventually found its place 2 weeks later. Things got a bit uncertain after the tragedy. The assurance of community safety was uncertain. Moscow Police Chief James Fry, who initially said there was no risk to the community, changed his tune 3 days later, admitting that they cannot say that there is no threat to the community. Fall break, supposed to be a time of anticipation starting after November 18th, with classes back on November 28th, lost its usual charm. Trust issues led to an early Thanksgiving getaway, with students and locals leaving. Those who stayed felt a mix of anxiety and caution, and some professors canceled classes. The outdoor candlelight vigil faced a weather hiccup, moving it indoors to the Kibbe Dome, where it finally happened on November 30th. Amid sorrow, the dads of Goncalves and Chapin weren't happy with the limited info from the police and university. Social media, especially TikTok and some self-proclaimed psychics, became a hub for wild speculations. The Moscow Police Department wasn't thrilled, calling out online detectives for spreading rumors without facts. Moscow Police Captain Roger Lanier stressed the need to keep things under wraps, saying that they were not releasing specific details as they did not want to compromise the investigation. The inquiry into the harrowing stabbings unfolded under the collaborative efforts of the Moscow Police Department, aided by the Idaho State Police and the Lada County Sheriff's Office. A formidable team, comprising nearly 130 law enforcement members from these agencies, diligently commenced their work on the case, navigating the labyrinth of clues and uncertainties. Autopsies conducted by the Lada County coroner on November 17th unraveled the grim details of the victim's fate. Each bore the signature of multiple stabbings, fatal wounds etched on their chests and upper bodies, inflicted by a large or eerily similar knife. Evident defensive stab wounds on at least one victim hinted at a futile struggle against the assailant, possibly catching the victims unaware in their beds. Significantly, no traces of sexual assault stained this incident. The victims, not bound or gagged, fell prey to a killer wielding what authorities suspect to be a fixed-blade knife. A surviving roommate, a crucial witness to the nightmarish scene, provided a sketchy portrait of the suspect. A male stranger, approximately 5'10" tall, possessing an athletic yet not overly muscular build with distinctive bushy eyebrows. The plea for public assistance echoed as police sought any video footage recorded on the night of the gruesome incident. A dedicated phone tip line and email became conduits for students and others to submit potential evidence. The response was overwhelming, with over 2,600 emailed tips, 2,700 phone calls, and 1,000 digital media submissions flooding in by December 5th. The investigative team found themselves sifting through at least 15,000 tips by December 24th, showing the community's commitment to unraveling the truth. Amid the shadows of uncertainty, the prospect of multiple perpetrators loomed as the police cautiously navigated the evolving narrative. Their belief in a targeted attack echoed through statements. Yet the exact focus, whether the residence or its occupants, remained an enigma. A November 23rd press conference added a layer of complexity as the Moscow police chief revealed a myriad of tips, including one suggesting Goncalves had a stalker. Yet despite these leads, authorities found themselves stuck in the middle of several unverified claims, unable to substantiate the existence of such an individual at that juncture. The quest for truth continued, urging the community to stand as vigilant sentinels in the pursuit of justice. In response to a deluge of tips from the community, authorities on December 15th disclosed their pursuit of leads involving records of around 22,000 fifth-generation Hyundai Elantras produced between 2011 and 2013. The investigative lens focused on a white Elantra captured by a nearby camera around the time of the incident. Intriguingly, this vehicle made multiple passes along a route near the victim's residence, as revealed by surveillance footage. Notably, the Elantra circled the victim's home 3 times, initiating at 3:29 a.m., with a return at 4:04 a.m., and a swift departure at 4:20 a.m. The trail led investigators to the owner, Brian Kohberger, a resident who drove the Elantra to the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania in the company of his father during the holiday season. Along this journey, Kohberger encountered the scrutiny of the Indiana State Police twice for speeding and tailgating within a nearly 5-mile radius along Interstate 70 outside Greenfield, Indiana. The FBI firmly refuted claims of orchestrating these stops. Meanwhile, cell phone data obtained by investigators pinpointed Kohberger's phone disconnecting from the network in Pullman at 2:47 a.m. on November 13th, later reconnecting near Blaine, Idaho, around 4:48 a.m. in proximity to U.S. Highway 95 south of Moscow. The digital breadcrumb trail deepened as investigators uncovered that Kohberger's phone, approximately 5 hours after the grisly events, accessed a cell tower near the victim's residence at 9 a.m. on November 13th. Intriguingly, the phone had a history of pinging from the nearest cell tower at least 12 times between June 2022 and the ill-fated date. Simultaneously, forensic scrutiny revealed an additional layer of evidence. A sample of DNA retrieved from the crime scene, distinct from the victim's, surfaced on a tan leather knife sheath on Mogen's bed, intensifying the web of investigative threads. Employing a public genealogy database, investigators unearthed a partial match linking to an individual with familial ties to Kohberger. This breakthrough prompted a meticulous pursuit of the DNA trail, ultimately connecting it to Kohberger by cross-referencing it. With DNA gleaned from refuse recovered at his family's residence in Pennsylvania. Leading up to his apprehension, Kohberger came under surveillance outside his parents' Pennsylvania house. A series of peculiar behaviors captured attention, including the repeated sight of him donning surgical gloves and discreetly depositing bags into a neighbor's trash can. These items underwent scrutiny at the Idaho State Lab for thorough analysis. Authorities underscored Kohberger's fastidiousness, noting that he had meticulously cleaned both the interior and exterior of his car, leaving no detail untouched. A subsequent search of the premises where Kohberger was apprehended yielded a trove of discoveries, including a knife, a firearm, a black face mask, and identification cards stowed inside a glove within a box. In a decisive move, a joint FBI SWAT team and Pennsylvania State Police operation culminated in the arrest of 28-year-old Brian Christopher Kohberger on December 30th at his parents' residence in Monroe County, Pennsylvania. At the moment of apprehension, authorities found Kohberger in the kitchen, attired in a shirt and shorts, adorned with examination gloves, and diligently segregating trash into distinct Ziploc baggies. Law enforcement revealed that they hadn't located the murder weapon following Kohberger's arrest. The circumstances surrounding the crime remain shrouded in mystery. It's uncertain whether the perpetrator had a personal connection with the victims or if the attack stemmed from jealousy or rage. No motive had been disclosed either, leaving a crucial piece of the puzzle missing. The veil of secrecy extended to a 911 call which was made at 11:58 a.m., 8 hours after the incident, which notified the police about an unconscious person, and it was made through the phones of one of the surviving roommates. Authorities have not disclosed the caller's identity and are withholding the audio. The nature of the conversation among roommates and other friends during the call, leading them to describe a victim as unconscious, remains undisclosed. Investigators are also tight-lipped about the timeline of events, whether the killer entered the residence before the victims returned home and lay in wait, or if the intruder entered after the students were already back. Brian Christopher Kohberger, born on November 21, 1994, came into this world in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. After wrapping up studies at Pleasant Valley High School in 2013, he embarked on an educational journey at Monroe Career and Technical Institute in Bartonsville, though his stint lasted only a year before he decided to drop out. Subsequently, Kohberger pursued an associate degree in psychology at Northampton Community College in Bethlehem, completing the program in 2018. Transitioning to the workforce, he took on the role of a security guard for the Pleasant Valley School District, a district with familial ties, as both his father and mother had connections to the educational institution. Furthering his academic pursuits, Kohberger obtained a BA in 2020 and an MA in 2022 in criminal justice from DeSales University in Center Valley, Pennsylvania. In the summer of 2022, Kohberger set his sights on Washington State making the move to enroll in a PhD program at Washington State University in Pullman, conveniently located less than 8 miles west of Moscow. At the time of the tragic events, he was a criminology doctoral student, having completed his first semester merely 9 days before his arrest. Kohberger's involvement as a teaching assistant at WSU took a downturn when faculty members, expressing concerns about his behavior, convened a meeting less than 2 weeks before the untimely murders. This culminated in his termination from the teaching assistant position on December 19th, rooted in unsatisfactory performance and a failure to adhere to norms of professional behavior in interactions with faculty. Brian Christopher Kohberger found himself facing the legal aftermath with 4 counts of first-degree murder and an additional felony charge of burglary. With a public defender by his side, Kohberger was apprehended and held without bond at the Monroe County Correctional Facility in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. Subsequently, during his courthouse appearance on January 3, 2023, he consented to extradition. The journey continued as he was flown to Pullman and driven to the Latah County Jail in Moscow, where he remained detained without bail. The legal saga unfolded at the Latah County Courthouse on January 5th, where Kohberger confronted charges of 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary linked to breaking into a residence with the intent to commit a felony. A week later, on January 12th, he reappeared for a status conference within the courthouse walls. In Nashville, a preliminary hearing was slated for June 26, where prosecutors needed to convince a judge of sufficient evidence to proceed with charges of burglary and 4 counts of murder. However, a twist occurred on May 16th, when a grand jury indicted Kohberger on the same charges. This redirected the case straight to the state's felony court level, bypassing the preliminary hearing. The indictment outlines 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary, detailing that the accused did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and with malice aforethought, kill and murder each victim by stabbing. Come May 2023, Kohberger opted for a silent stance during his arraignment, refusing to enter a plea. The judge, in response, recorded a not guilty plea on his behalf. As the narrative evolved on June 26th, the Latah County Prosecutor's Office proclaimed their pursuit of the death penalty, citing statutory aggravating circumstances tied to the first-degree murder charges. After the trial began, Kohberger's parents were summoned to testify before a grand jury in their home state of Pennsylvania. The twist in this tale revealed that the accused killer's mother had already provided her account to the grand jury. His father was then set to testify, in a move that could potentially share crucial information with Idaho prosecutors handling the case. Adding to the complexity, this investigation delved into the perplexing disappearance and subsequent death of Dana Smithers, a 45-year-old woman. Eyewitness News reported on the grim circumstances surrounding Smithers, who went missing without a trace in May 2022, from Monroe County, Pennsylvania, the same location where Kohberger resided at that time. The somber turn of events took a dark twist when Smithers' remains were discovered later. The intertwining threads of these investigations opened up a web of questions as the legal narrative expanded beyond the initial scope, revealing connections that added a layer of intrigue to an already complex situation. As Kohberger's parents become key figures in the unfolding drama, the tendrils of these investigations reach back to a previous case, leaving the community and legal observers eager to see how these pieces fit together in the broader puzzle of justice. Kohberger's legal team took a swing at having the grand jury indictment against him thrown out. They claimed that the prosecution didn't play fair, alleging evidence withholding and suggesting that the grand jurors were biased. Additionally, they argued that there was just not enough evidence to justify the indictment. Unfortunately for Kohberger, Judge John Judge wasn't swayed and rejected these arguments. Not one to back down. Kohberger's attorneys made another attempt to have the indictment dismissed. On December 21st, they filed a motion asking the judge to reconsider his previous decisions. This move came after the judge had already shot down their initial efforts. A closed-door hearing, scheduled for January 26th, was set to address this motion. The purpose was to discuss allegations of a biased grand jury, along with claims of inadmissible and insufficient evidence and misconduct from the prosecutors. The judge emphasized that the closed-door nature of this hearing was to protect the privacy of the grand jurors and the integrity of the grand jury's procedures. Simultaneously, a public hearing was lined up for 1 p.m. that day. This session aimed to delve into arguments surrounding the dismissal of the indictment, specifically focusing on claims that inaccurate instructions were given to grand jurors. Following this, a public hearing on Thompson's request to set a trial date was on the docket. Judge, in a ruling on December 15th, made it clear that Kohberger's defense team failed to make a convincing case against the indictment. He stated that an impartial grand jury, armed with enough admissible evidence, indicted Kohberger based on probable cause. According to Judge, there was no prosecutorial misconduct, and the state had played by the rules. In a different attempt to throw a wrench in the works, Kohberger's lawyers argued that the grand jury was given the wrong instructions, insisting that the standard of beyond a reasonable doubt should have been applied, not the lower probable cause threshold. The judge swiftly shot down this argument, emphasizing that the grand jury's role is to screen for sufficient evidence to proceed to trial using the probable cause standard. The legal intricacies and maneuvers in this case are far from over. But one thing is certain: a gag order keeps everyone involved tight-lipped, barring any discussions from the prosecution, defense, or law enforcement officials. The legal landscape in Kohberger's case has taken several more intriguing turns since he's been arrested. Prosecutors, aiming for the maximum penalty, have expressed their intent to seek the death penalty, pointing to 5 aggravating circumstances that could justify such a severe sentence. Originally slated for trial on October 2, 2023, a surprising twist occurred when Kohberger decided to forego his right to a speedy trial, resulting in a significant delay. Subsequently, an attempt to bar cameras from the courtroom was made, but Judge John C. signaled that this request wouldn't be granted. As the legal drama unfolded, prosecutors filed a motion in late December 2023, proposing a new trial schedule for the summer of 2024. Their argument centered on providing ample time for the defense to review the case's evidence thoroughly. Interestingly, the state emphasized the importance of scheduling trial proceedings during a period when high schools and universities in the area are not in full swing, considering the anticipated surge in media presence. In their filing, the state also urged the judge to establish deadlines for various aspects, such as the submission of discovery, disclosure of expert witnesses, and filing pretrial motions, including those related to the death penalty. The proposed summer trial timeline aligns with a strategic aim to minimize disruptions caused by the case's media coverage, especially considering the proximity of Moscow High School to the courthouse. The court filing did not specify a particular date, but it acknowledged the need to avoid overlapping with significant academic events, including the University of Idaho's spring commencement scheduled for May 11, 2024, and Moscow High School's classes concluding in the first week of June. Kohberger, now confined in the Lada County Jail, has been denied bond and maintains his plea of not guilty against all charges as he awaits the trial. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe to not miss our next cases, and we'll see you in the next video.